And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vasel, and today we're taking a look at 3 games that look really cool. Not quite as cool as they look. So I'm going to start at the bottom and go up. I don't think any of these games are bad. I want to be clear on that. But neither do I think they're pretty spectacular. Either they're okay. So here we go. First we have Shards of the Jaguar. Now this one looks really cool. When you look at the board for this one, there's colorful pieces and gems. There's traps and you're going through, it's like a bunch of Indiana Jones, except you're trying to make other people fall into traps. And then you score points for, getting different gems and things running all over the board. But the game has a bit of a flaw here with Shards of the Jaguar, at least in my opinion, obviously. And that's so each round, each player picks a trap that they're setting off, and then you pick what kind of trap. So the trap might be pick one section of floor, red, yellow, or blue. That's going to be a bad section for people to walk on. Pick one section of dart traps that's going to shoot out. So this is like, it's supposed to be kind of, I think, a deduction game, like I wonder which one they picked. But in reality, it's really random. You can guess by where they stopped that they're not going to land on those spots. So if you pick the colored floor one, and then you stop on the red floor, I'm like, well, it's blue or yellow. But which one? Well, you know I'm going to go here, so you would pick blue. And you might think there's a bit of this back and forth Princess Bride style, if who put the wine in what cup. But in reality, you don't know, and there's not any really good information to go on. Maybe on the final turn of the game when there's really great spots to go to. Other than that, it's kind of a just run around and pick stuff up. The game, when the traps do hit you, they hurt, and you take some damage. And there's maybe too many pieces and convoluted systems for what turns out to be a pretty simple game. So it looks cool, but it's not one I can really recommend. Shards of the Jaguar, I'd give this one a 5 out of 10. The next game is super pretty, and that's Moonshell. Now, Moonshell is a game in which you're going to have a bunch of different shells of different colors and things in the middle of the board, and you are using the tide to bring them, wash them up, and then collect them, put them on your own board, and score points for them in various ways, whether it's by shapes or numbers or amounts. Not a particularly new genre. There are lots of games in this where you're going to build a grid and you score points for different things. What makes this one stand out? For one, we have the artwork, okay? And while whatever I might say about the rest of the game, the art in this is top notch. But when it comes down to collecting this stuff, it's not very interesting. There's a rotating board in the middle, and then you pull stuff towards you, and then you collect it. But a lot of times, you're forced to do something, or you pull something and then someone else collects it instead of you. It just feels a little unfinished. This one would be a 6 out of 10 for me. I do get that there's going to be some high appeal for this one amongst folks who are new to gaming. And I think it might even work for them. Maybe part of this is the fact that I'm in the hobby pretty deeply and I'm looking for something new and this doesn't feel new. The rotating board, I was like, that's interesting. But in reality, it wasn't that interesting for me. There's special abilities that the mermaids have. They don't necessarily feel balanced. The rules are okay. It feels a little bit of an unfinished product here. But like I said, it sure looks great on the table. And it's not a bad game per se. Thus the 6. Then we have Luna Capital, which almost looks like a Where's Waldo picture when you look close. And the concept of this game is pretty neat, but it has some weird diminishing terms. Not diminishing terms, actually increasing terms. So again, this is one where you're building a grid in front of you, and at the end of the game, you're going to score points. And you do so by taking these, and you get tokens, and then you put the tokens on the card. So you're drafting cards and tokens. But then in round 2, you're drafting 2 cards and tokens, and you get more tokens each round, and then starting over again halfway through. And this game has a few problems. The scoring is fairly obtuse because you score for different things, they score differently, and everything is really small. This game also comes with a nice thing that holds tiles, and yet I cannot for the life of me figure out how to effectively put it in the box without storing the tiles in it, which is kind of a pain. And it shows a picture here with how everything fits in the box, and I just found it to be I mean, you're going to move the box, everything is going to fall out. That's a minor complaint about it. I love the artwork in this one. I actually think the game is fine. This is another 6 for me. As you collect these and build them in front of you. But I found that everyone was constantly pausing and saying, how does this score? Why does this symbol look similar to this one? The scoring on these works a little bit differently. And a drafting game that kind of builds up and builds up. And sometimes you're getting stuff that you just cannot use. And so you're putting it there. It felt like the game was a little too constrictive when it should have been much more open-ended and much more fun, in my opinion. So none of these games are games that I'm going to be adding to the Dice Tower library, although, again, I can see some people really like them, and this is the nicest looking one of all of them. But Lunar Capital from DeVere is, again, not necessarily a bad game, but I do think it's a bit forgettable because when it's done, the work put into it felt a little longer than the fun that the game provided. Shards of the Jaguar is cool, but again, it's too much game for what it's giving back to the players. Anyway, those are 3 reviews of various pretty looking games. I'm Tom Vasel, and you've been watching the Dice Tower.